Hey guys, and welcome back to the Year of the Linux Desktop. Today we're moving a little towards workstation territory because we're going to talk about development and reproducible environments. So as you know, Bazzite is an immutable distro, which means you cannot run your typical DNF install like you do on regular Fedora distros. So how can you manage your tooling for development? So one way you can do that is by starting with rebasing to Bazzite DX. I think that's an image that's still in development, but it already packs some interesting and useful stuff like Docker or VS Code. Okay. Another way is to simply use Homebrew. As you know, Bazzite comes prepackaged with Homebrew or Linux Brew, and you can, just like in a Mac, brew install whatever you need. This is a good option. I use a hybrid of this and another option, as you'll see. You can also install stuff by layering on top of the current image using rpm OS3 install, and you saw this on a few videos back when I first was exploring Bazzite. Personally, although I would prefer to avoid this approach, just because I drink of the Immutable cup and I picked an Immutable distro, so I want to use it as an Immutable distro, so I would like to avoid touching the operating system. So there is another option, which is Flatpaks, mainly for GUIs, to install your IDE or whatever, but then the Flatpaks are isolated within their own environment, so how will they interact with the tooling that you install on your system? Finally, there is another option, which is my favorite option for Bazzite. It comes installed out of the box, and this is distrobox. So distrobox is kind of like your mutable layer to manage your tooling. It works kind of like WSL on Windows, where you emulate several Linux distros. Similarly, distrobox will spin up containers for your favorite Linux distro. You can run Ubuntu or Debian if that's what you want or prefer for development, or if you have some restrictions. But I personally use Fedora Toolbox, which is the default lightweight Fedora-based distro that they provide. But there are some quirks about the choices that you make, and I'm going to cover all of this next. What didn't work or what I didn't like as an approach, what worked, and then we'll delve deeper into how to set up your own distrobox.ini so you can reproduce your environment in the future or elsewhere. And this is extremely useful. For instance, for my website, I was using a version of Hugo to compile it, and I was using 0111x, and for some reason I forgot which version I was using. I installed latest supposedly compatible version, and the compilation broke the website. I fixed it, then my automated deployment on GitHub compiled it with the actual version that I was expected to use, and it broke again. So it's extremely useful for you to prepackage your software with a very simple distrobox.ini that you can easily, from where you can easily spin up your environment. Think of it like dev containers, and dev containers, the way it's designed is a bit more interesting because they are composable. But personally, I want to move away from anything that's Microsoft or Microsoft adjacent, so I would prefer to use distrobox, and it's also already available in Bazzite, so it makes perfect sense that we are going to look into it. And so let's take a look at distrobox. I already have a few distroboxes running. Let me just stop these two. Okay, and so let's create a new distrobox. let's first take a look at the help. So you've got create, and as you can see, there are a few options here and a few examples. We at least want to give it a name. We can specify the image, but we're going to use the default Fedora image. And so let's create one without any video. We don't need that for this example. So let's call it video, because this is for the YouTube video. And now let's distrobox enter video. As you can see, it downloaded Fedora Toolbox latest from the registry under fedoraproject.org. And I'm using Starship here for my prompt. So by default, Starship will show me the container that I'm connected to, which is very useful to keep track of which distro box, whether we are in the host or inside one of the containers for distro box, for instance. So as you can see, Starship is not installed inside distrobox, and for that we need to add this repo first. Okay, and then we can just run dnf install Starship as usual. This is just like a mutable OS, because once you're inside distrobox, the OS is mutable, right? You're inside the container, you can do whatever you want. And this is the beauty of immutable OSs and cloud first or cloud native operating systems that are container first. And so I just installed Starship. So if I just exec fish, you'll now see my custom Starship prompt, and you can see that we are inside the video container. Of course, this works because by default distrobox mounts your home. Everything else inside distrobox is part of the container, but your home is mounted exactly in the same directory. Okay. So one of the options that I considered that didn't work, and I'll tell you why, it works partially but it's not ideal, is installing our IDEs directly inside distrobox, because distrobox lets you export apps. So you've got this distrobox export command, which lets you export both system binaries and applications, and this means that, for instance, you can export Visual Studio Code as a desktop app that will automatically be included in your KDE menu, in your Plasma menu. But this is not always the best approach, even for binaries, because there is a delay. For instance, if we installed Starship on a distrobox and exported it for use in the host system, then every time you press enter on the command line, there will be a slight delay that is not common if it's installed natively. So I ended up installing most of my base tools with Homebrew, and then if I need them for development, I install them again inside my distrobox container. Okay, so first let's try and install Visual Studio Code and see how it works here. So following the instructions on the official website, we need to add this repo, and then we can simply run dnf install code. Okay, and so we now have, I believe, code installed. I guess it didn't install for some reason. Let me try again. Okay, and let's just switch to the desktop, because we'll need to check whether VS Code is installed in the Plasma menu or not. Okay, so now as you can see, we've got code here. Okay, if we go into the menu, you'll see Visual Studio Code, but this is the Flatpak, and don't worry, it will be obvious that it comes from distrobox. So one thing we can do is export it. Okay, so let's check it out. We need to add app. Let's call it code, and I believe That's all it takes. Okay, and we can list these apps that are exported. As you can see, it exported this as a .desktop, and if we go in here, we'll see on video, right, which is our distrobox container. So if I click here and open Visual Studio Code, it seems to work appropriately, right? I also opened it before, so that's why probably Lab Store is open here. And in the past, apparently, I wasn't able to sign in to GitHub because once I tried to, and let me sign out again. So once I tried to run this, the browser wouldn't open. But as you can see, it now opens correctly. And it even asks me which version I would like to go back to. And I believe that since this is now working, which is one of the reasons why I didn't use it this way, I might be able to run Go, install Go here. So let's actually try to do that and see if this actually works, right? So let's go into the Go website. And I believe they've got installation instructions over here. So for Linux, you can just run this. So let's try to do it. Oh, right, I gotta download this first. So let's download the Linux version for AMD64. Okay, and now, as you know, this is on our home, so this is mounted on our home, and so no, I need sudo. That's just the problem here. And so let's see. Okay, Go is installed. I'll just need to add this to path. So now I've got Go. Let's see if I can run one of my. So I need the Go extension. Okay, let's install that. Let's update the tools. This will give us a good idea of whether this is actually working. So it's installing Go test, simple, DLV, and so we'll be able to see whether that is being installed under Go bin on the home. Oh, right, because this was previously mounted, we won't really be sure that this happened, but it should be okay. So let's run our debugger, and it seems to be compiling. It takes about 12 seconds for Lab Store, and please go check our videos on the series where we show you how to build an object store from the ground up with IAM included. And as you can see, it is working. So this was meant to show you something that wasn't supposed to be ideal. I knew it worked, but it doesn't seem ideal, but it's starting to look a lot better, if I'm honest. So add that to your book of viable options as well. Another option would be to install your tooling via Flatpaks, so you can do something like this, for instance, for Golang. But there is an additional issue. First of all, not all tools are available as Flatpak out of the box, right? So this is a major block that doesn't, in my view, make sense to give priority to Flatpaks. But then when you try to install Golang, you get this versioning. This is an internal version for the Flatpak, and you need to know the correspondence between this version and the version of Go that you want to install. You probably want to install the latest one, so it should be probably this one, or rather this one, but I'm not sure what this 1.6 is, and I'm not sure which version I'm installing. So I don't like like that very much. One thing that we could use once this is installed is simply set this environment variable for our Flatpaks that need Golang. So we would go to Flatsil, for instance, and we've got VS Code here, and we would scroll down to environment variables, just add one and add Golang here, and supposedly Golang would be available for in your VS Code. I tested this and it works, but I don't particularly like this approach. Okay, so what I ended up doing, and let's first remove the application before we destroy this distro box. So we can just to demo it out, because it would be removed anyway. So once I do this, if we go here, you'll see there is no Visual Studio Code for the video distro box that I created, and so I can just remove this distro box. And so let's just do distrobox rm video. Tells us that it's running, and we can remove it anyway. So we'll get a bunch of the stop distro boxes, and for this video I'll show you devbox in a second. And this is my actual development environment, and then I've got separate development environments per project, just so other people can use it as well without an issue. There's one for Lab Store, and there's one for my personal website as well, but devbox contains everything that I need, and this is the one that we will take a look at. So what I ended up doing was go into Bazzite and look for Visual Studio Code. I installed Visual Studio Code from Bazzite as a Flatpak, and then I had to set up Visual Studio Code to work with Podman. And keep in mind that this is running on a Flatpak, and I need Podman to run from my host machine. So the way to do this is to follow the instructions on the distrobox's website and set this option, dev containers docker path, to a custom, I use local bin, Podman host binary. If we go into the distrobox website, and let me just quickly search for this, there is a way to integrate with Visual Studio Code. Just search for this blog post. And in here you'll find that you've got both Podman host or Docker hosts, and you can download them both directly from this repo from distrobox. And this is what I did. I actually just copy paste this command, and once you've got this set up, now you can run attached to running container. There are no running containers right now, and you can do your development inside your distrobox. So if we go into the terminal and run distrobox enter devbox, it should start. For some reason it doesn't start, just run systemctl --user restart Podman socket. Sometimes there are some small issues. And as you can see, we are inside a Fedora box, a container. So let's say that we wanted to run this, switch this into a container, because we need, let's say, we need the Hugo command or something like that. As you can see, command not found. Okay. So let's just attach to running container. You'll find your distrobox here, and let's enter. This sometimes happens where you'll have the previous directory over here, and that's fine. You just close the directory, close the folder, and open the folder that you want. If you don't want this within your history, you can just remove the one you don't want here, and in the future it will open correctly with the container that you wish to use, as well as the folder where you wish to open it. And so now we would have the Yugo command available. This is actually the wrong version because I was using the wrong version before, but you know, let's quickly fix it since we are here. And I think I have fixed it in the distrobox file, but if not, let's fix it now. So this is your distrobox.ini, and we'll go into detail about this, but for this we just want to switch this by 1113. Okay, let's just switch to this version. And now that we've done that, let's quit Visual Studio Code. Let's exit this and let's just stop DevBox. And now let's actually remove DevBox. And let's recreate it from the dev init that I just created. In fact, I wanted to do this for DLT dev, not DevBox, but that's fine. The advantage of having this as a file is that you can recreate it anytime. It will take a while, but you just have to run it and wait for a little bit. So this is the source code from my website. As you can see, I just changed this version. Now let's actually commit this. Okay, so let's run distrobox assemble, which is the way we can use to create a distrobox, and we run create with file, and in this case we are going to use the distrobox.ini file that we find here, and it was created. Now we just run distrobox enter, and this is when it will install the packages that it requires. Keep in mind, we'll go through this in the next chapter. I'm just showing the basics of how to use distrobox.ini, and here we are. So as we can see, the Yugo version is now the one that we specified, that we changed, and that's pretty much how you work with distrobox. Once you have the distrobox available, you can leave it running if you use it frequently, or you can stop and start as required. And of course this will use some system resources, but it's not too heavy because, you know, containers. And so now let's go into more detail on how to create your own distrobox.ini. And I've got a repo where I provide a quite complete example of this. I also provide an install script, so if you don't remember the commands that you need to use, you can run this. I use verbose, so you can get some additional feedback while installing this. And of course, this, as usual, is on Data Lab Tech TV, and you will be able to find it under our repos, and the repo is called dev env. Is it dev env? Yep, it's dev env. Okay, and so I will eventually add a readme here, but it's just a matter of running the assemble command, or you can run install sh, which makes this a bit more automated, and it even checks whether DevBox is already available, and it will do nothing, right? And so let's use Vim today. And so the way this works is you create a block, a section with the name of your distrobox. This one is called DevBox, And this is the basic stuff. You assign an image to use. I'm using the Fedora Toolbox latest, which is the default. You can also set pull equals true, which means that it will pull every time, even if the image exists. That's why I didn't add it. And then I also set entry equals false, otherwise it will add an entry to the menu called devbox. I don't know if I've got one of mine here, but I don't, because I don't like it. I mean, why create a shortcut to open the distro box? I can run it from the command line. Then I set NVIDIA equals true, because this will be used for my AI stuff like running Olama and all that, so I need NVIDIA to work here. And then there are several sections, but they are pretty much similar, and they use pre-init hooks, which is commands that run before installing packages. Then we've got our packages commands, and we can have multiple of each. And then we've got our init hooks, which run after installing packages. Okay, I don't know if there is another command besides these ones. There is, for instance, the volume one in here to expose the Podman sock as the Docker sock. So I will have Docker inside my distro box, but it's really Podman. And then let me check if there is an additional command, and as you can see, that's about it. That's about what you need to do. So for instance, let's see here, this pre-init hook exports my shell as being user bin fish. For some reason, I believe the shell variable was not set correctly, and so I do this. I believe it defaults to bash or something like that. So doing this is enough to switch your shell. Then I add the repo for Starship, because I'll need Starship in here. Don't forget the -y, because this is not interactive. And then I install my shell basics. So I install fish, I install starfish, Shimoa, which is for .file management. Next video I'll be talking about this. I install DRAM, fast fetch, and some other utilities that I enjoy quite a lot and I recommend. So Zoxide is like your better CD. It will keep history of the directories that you visit, and it has fuzzy matching, and you can just press Z and the name of I don't know, maybe data, and it will take you to the closest match that's been the most CD'd to. You can also use ZI, so it will be something like this. Okay, so if you use ZI, you'll get a list and you can switch to another one. Okay, and then you've got BAT, which is a nice alternative to CAT with syntax highlighting. Grep grep, much faster alternative to regular grep. And fdfind, which is also an alternative to find. I personally still prefer regular find, but fd is quite nice for a quick search, you know, just by file name. And then I also install this with cargo, and you might ask, oh, where the hell is cargo in here? And these don't need to be in order, so I am installing cargo in here, as you can see. So this doesn't need to be in order. And I'm installing ESA, which is an alternative to ls, which is the one that you see here with all these directories and these nice colors. You also get ls-3, and let me not do this for all my files, but let's do it for instance for data lab tech TV. Okay, this is the equivalent to 3, so it's quite nice. Then I've got some general tools, NCDU to check where I'm spending too much storage, BTOP. You always need to have BTOP. Pre-ping is nice to check if you are having packet loss. JQ and YQ to parse JSON and YAML. Then I've got some image tools in here. So let me check. This is installing the non-free repo for Fedora, because I'm installing ImageMagick, but also the support for the hike format, which is for photos from iPhones. If you don't install the non-free version, you won't be able to install this, and you won't be able to convert hike to JPEG or whatever. And then I installed this tool called RamBG. This is a great tool to remove the backgrounds of photos. Keep in mind that you'll need NVIDIA enabled for this to work, and you'll also need to install this so you can convert to JPEG first, because RamBG doesn't support hike. Okay. Then I've got some network tools. rclone for data transfer. It's like rsync but for the cloud. iPerf3 to measure performance. Netcat, it's like a connection Swiss Army knife. MKCert, which you saw on the last video to create your own self-signed certificates, and map for port mapping. And then I also install several S3 clients like MC or S5CMD. Warp is a benchmarker for object stores. And I also install HTTP with the AWS Auth v4 for SIG-v4 authentication. Then for data tools, I only have term graph for now, which lets you plot charts, color charts directly in the terminal. For AI tools, I'm just installing Ollama, and this is just a dependency for Ollama. And then I've got my development basics: Git, just pre-commit, clog to count our code lines, NeoVim. I set NeoVim as my main Vim alternative, and then I install also LazyGit, which is extremely nice, especially if you have multiple changes or if you need to split one file into multiple commits. It's also an amazing tool for that. Then I've got my container tools. It's just Docker Compose and Docker CLI that runs through Podman, and I install LazyDocker as well. This is why I need this volume here, otherwise LazyDocker wouldn't work, and other Docker tools as well. Then I install my languages: Golang, Rust, Cargo for Rust, UV for Python, and Node.js. And I install Go PLS out of the box. This is automatically installed in VS Code, but I decided to install it here because I'm going to be debugging Go a lot. Then I install Hugo. It's the same version as you just saw on the other dev distrobox.ini. I install Golang CI lint for linting in Go. I'll add other tools here as well later. And then for databases, I installed SQLite and DuckDB. For now, I will install Postgres in the future probably, or at least PGCLI. And that's pretty much how you create your own distrobox. As you can see, there aren't many commands. So pre-init runs before installing packages. This is done with additional packages. Init hooks runs after installing packages, and you can have as many commands as you like, and so I just split them by groups, categories that make sense, and that's it. If you want to use my environment on your distrobox, just clone the repo and run install sh, and you'll have the same environment as the one that I'm using with RamBG. If you want to remove the background of your photos easily without having to trace it, and that's it. Hopefully this is a good overview of how to use distrobox, and you will realize that you don't need to use dev containers all the time, as long as you can attach to the container or install your IDE directly on the distrobox, and that's what I'm going to attempt in the future for Zed. just because Z cannot attach to a running container like VS Code does. It supports SSH or dev containers, and I don't like to use either one, so maybe I can use Z by installing it through the distrobox directly and exporting it. Before I go, just a small detail. If you go into a distrobox, let's enter for instance this one, and you want to run commands on the host, you also have a distrobox host exec, okay, and you'll be running commands directly on the host. And a final note, I'm running starship for the prompt both inside my distrobox and on my host machine using brew. So if you check for starship, you'll see that it is being installed with brew, okay. And if you go into the distrobox, you'll see that it is under user bin because it was installed with DNF during distrobox assemble. And the reason I have duplicated this is because like I said, it would be extremely slow to export, so we can do something like this: export --bin, and let's say which starship, because I don't know the path. I actually know it, but let's say I didn't, and I could do this, and then once I do this and I go here, you can see that starship is under .local bin, and it's no longer the version from a Linux brew or homebrew. But this in general is slower, so I opted to install all my basic tools. You know, anything that's shell related and needs to be fluid, I opted to install it directly using brew. So if we want to remove this, we can just delete it. Let me just check. Oh, right, because I deleted it, it's no longer parsing correctly, but if I do it again, then we are okay. And so it is back to the version on Linux Brew. And that's it about distrobox, distrobox assemble, and distrobox.ini. Hopefully you can now use distrobox for your development activities. The only thing that I'm really just missing is testing how we can use custom home, so we can achieve complete isolation. And I believe we can combine this with Shimwa to bring in our custom configurations as well. Next video will be covering Shimwa, so stick around. If you want to learn more about this, be sure to check our blog post on datalabtechtv.com. Also follow the channel on Blue Sky for updates, and you can drop by at Discord to have a little chat. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to keep mastering systems.